I call the Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I now move the amendments circulated in my name, which you've got a copy of, I think, so all good. Yep. I rise to speak on the Treasury Laws Amendment, Tax Incentives and Integrity Bill 2024. This bill, I believe, is another attack, particularly on small businesses, from the Albanese government. This is an anti-business government, and the bill highlights how the government is failing small businesses across Australia who are struggling. We saw today, in question time, how little the front bench of the government knows about small business when we were talking about tax-deductible meetings over lunch. They just don't understand it. They don't get it. These businesses are facing record insolvencies under the Albanese government. Can you believe that in less than one term, 27,000 businesses have gone bust in Australia under the Albanese government?
How many?
27,000 businesses. Yeah, you've heard it right if you're listening. The December 2024 quarter was the worst quarter for business insolvencies on record, with 3,852 businesses going to the wall. The private sector in Australia is in decline, and the majority of jobs created by the Albanese government are being funded by public spending. Rather than taking this issue seriously or taking this issue on or having any sort of plan and picking small businesses up with the support that they desperately need, the Albanese government is pushing them down with brazen cash grabs in this bill. They're taxing them more with cash grabs. We have seen the government double down on their attack on small businesses today. As I said before, with their bizarre response to the Coalition's food and entertainment tax deductibility on money that businesses spend. It's their money. We're talking small businesses spending their own money with meetings with staff. They might have a good month, achieve budget, and they have a staff meeting over lunch. The business spends the money, not the government. All they're doing is getting a tax deduction if you've got a turnover of a business under 10 million, lots of little businesses. And the government want to attack that as well. And that's because none of them have run a business. None of them have. I'd love to hear about the business that those opposite have run. But this morning the Treasurer was quoting figures that are absolutely high and incorrect. This policy has a modest cost but a big impact for those small businesses who can have the confidence to reward their staff or clients with a coffee or a meal without attracting further tax liabilities. Deputy Speaker, the government has made it clear they don't support meaningful tax relief for Australia's small business. The Treasurer has never run a business, and now he seems set on ensuring no other Australian wants to run one either. Back to this bill, these are not serious reforms. This is a government running out of ideas and reverting to its usual form to tax more. If you look at Schedule 1 of the bill, it relates to the luxury car tax that was brought in by the Labor government, the former Treasurer Wayne Swan, back in 2007. And what it will do is it will alter the luxury car tax by restricting the definition of a fuel-efficient vehicle. So right now, every car that's over $80,567 has a luxury car tax on it. But if it's an electric vehicle, or if it's a vehicle that uses 7 litres per 100, some sort of high hybrid vehicle, 7 litres per 100, the luxury car tax kicks in at $91,387. So what does this government want to do? That's the way it's been. It's raising $1.5 billion or something a year. They want to change the definition of a fuel-efficient car and make it that, oh no, 7 litres per 100 is not good enough. We're going to bring it down to 3.5 litres per 100. That's their plan. When we've seen 27,000 small businesses gone broke so far. So these amendments will reduce consumer choice and apply the luxury car tax to more vehicles. And why? Because they're spending some $350 billion extra over the forward estimates. Compared to the last budget that Josh Frydenberg delivered in the Morrison government, they're spending everything that Josh budgeted plus another $350 billion, so they're grabbing taxes where they can. The new definition for fuel efficiency will effectively limit the threshold to just EVs. It compounds Labor's existing ute and family car tax policy via new fuel efficiency standards. And although the government eventually watered down that proposal, it is now imposing a new tax by dramatically limiting what is considered fuel efficient for the luxury car tax. It is a tax grab. The luxury car tax already, as I said before, brings in over $1 billion a year in the 23-24 financial year. But not content with that, they want more to spend, to fund for dud policies like free TAFE. That has a 13% completion rate. I went to TAFE, mate. 13% completion rate, that's not how to spend taxpayers' money. You know that university students pay HECS, but I know if you go to TAFE you can't contribute anything. That policy is a dud policy. And when I'm dead and buried, in 100 years from now, Labor will still be going on about free TAFE. They recycle these dud policies over and over again. Well, I've been involved with politics for some time, and Labor have been saving TAFE for 20 years. You know what else they've been saving for 20 years? Medicare. I saw the member for Lilly at a campaign launch the other day on social media, save Medicare, give me a break. Bob Billing's never been lower than what it is under the Albanese government. We should be saving Medicare from you lot, the Albanese government, not a future coalition government. The coalition supports a fuel-efficient and low-emissions transport sector in Australia, but it must be based on the principles of choice, maximise the choice of vehicles available to Australians. That's what we should be doing. Originally, when Labor brought in this new tax 15 or so years ago, the luxury car tax, it was there because, oh, well, we had Australian cars, we've got to save the industry. But now we don't have Australian cars. Why? Mainly because unions keep pushing up the price of wages, and the Minister for Energy over here, what's he done to energy prices for business? In less than 3 years, he's doubled the price of energy for every business in Australia. I challenge a member opposite of the Labor Party to go out and talk to a business in their electorate and find me a business that hasn't had their energy double. Most businesses have had a 100% increase in their energy prices in less than 3 years. That's the legacy. That's what you're approaching in the next 12 weeks, the next election with. That's what you'll have to defend, the doubling of energy prices on small businesses and tens of thousands of businesses closing and now additional tax. And not only that, consumer electricity has gone up. The other thing is no disadvantage. That's what the coalition supports. The poor, the vulnerable and region Australians should not be worse off, but they are under this government. Affordability, the overall financial affordability of cars currently available should not be diminished. And it's a low-emissions policy, not just EVs. Hybrids, hydrogen and biofuels all have a role to play. Hybrids are exceptional. I mean, if you look at the Comcars that they run down here, those Camrys, they've got remarkable fuel efficiency. They wouldn't be classed. They would be hit with this new tax under this bill. I mean, you can run, I don't know where your electorate is, but it's a couple of thousand kilometres from here?
No, it's only 250 kilometres.
Oh, right, you're a poor example. Maybe I can't use the Deputy Speaker because...
Either,
all right, I'll leave that one alone. Sorry about that, Deputy Speaker. But small businesses and other taxpayers are under financial distress because of this government. And recent research from CommBank found that more than half of Australian small and medium-sized businesses are feeling the stress of navigating the cost of living crisis, with 57% of business owners reporting feeling stress due to financial pressures. Now, this is the harsh reality facing businesses under the Albanese government. And the policy intent of these existing interest charges is to neutralise the loan benefit that a taxpayer gets due to the late payment of tax. Now, the point of it is to put a taxpayer who is late paying tax in the same position as a taxpayer who has paid tax on time. But making these interest charges non-deductible goes beyond neutralising this loan benefit. It effectively now is an immediate penalty regardless of the debt levels of culpability of the late taxpayer. The interest charges are already calculated using an uplift to the 90-day bank bill rate. This uplift is 7% plus for the GIC, and this is to discourage the use of tax debts as a source of finance. Denying deductibility to small businesses, every small business across Australia, goes well beyond discouraging. It's punitive. It is a penalty. And a revised tax assessment can occur for many reasons. These reasons can vary from honest mistake to uncertainty about a complex tax issue. On this point, the Corporate Tax Association has raised concerns that the proposed amendments may result in unintended behavioural consequences around how taxpayers and the ATO constructively engage to resolve long-running disputes. The association notes that Australian tax laws are complex and that in most instances a taxpayer would self-assess a position to comply with the law, and this would often include receiving advice from their accountants. Don't get me started on accountants, what the Assistant Treasurer has done to them in this last term. The current arrangements, which allow for deductibility, take into account the uncertainty of the tax environment and that filed positions can be reviewed well after a tax return is lodged. The Tax Institute has said that the availability of a deduction for the GIC and SIC has been integral to the tax system for an extended period, and this is a significant change for taxpayers to navigate. The Council of Small Business Organisations Australia has raised concerns that small businesses are already struggling with cash flow issues, higher energy bills, higher insurance bills, higher wages bills, less income because all Australians have got higher rents and higher mortgages, will be disproportionately affected, and that for these small businesses already struggling to make ends meet. They say this proposal will result in more complexity and a higher chance that the ATO's tax debt holdings may increase because businesses will continue to struggle to pay the higher cost of their outstanding liabilities. This comes as a recent study from MYOB found that 1/3 of small business owners cannot pay themselves due to cash flow challenges, and 1/4 have resorted to using their personal savings to keep businesses running. The government proposal will also require small businesses to consider and invest funds into a more sophisticated cash flow management strategy, and will require them to spend more money on accountants and on advisors to assist with their financial and tax planning. This will cost business more, small businesses more, family businesses more, medium businesses more, and it compounds their struggles further, often resulting in higher prices, which adds to inflation, and higher costs for all the people that we represent. The accounting professional bodies have been particularly critical of this measure. Chartered Accountants ANZ, the Institute of Public Accountants, the National Tax and Accountants Association and the Self-Managed Super Fund Association made a joint submission calling for Schedule 2 to be removed from the bill entirely. Their submission found that it is unlikely that increasing the cost of SIC will impact an entity's ability to correctly self-assess their tax liability, and the current cost of the GIC means that many taxpayers already have a strong incentive to pay tax on time. That making this non-deductible will inappropriately increase compliant costs of honest taxpayers. That there are already a wide range of targeted measures that the Australian Taxation Office can undertake to improve the collection of tax debt, and the latest annual report indicates that such measures are beginning to make an impact. CPA Australia made a similar submission, urging the government to reconsider this proposal. CPA Australia say denying these deductions will create undue financial hardship for small businesses and individuals, making the existing challenges in the current economic environment worse. This is an indiscriminate measure that fails to address situations where taxpayers have historically done the right thing, or through no fault of their own, accrue these charges due to legitimate tax disputes or administrative delays. In their explanatory memorandum, the government points to the ability for a taxpayer to apply for remission of an interest charge, i.e. to ask for it to be waived. But stakeholders report that the measure comes at a time of long delays in the ATO service delivery and inconsistent outcomes on remission requests. Disputing decisions is already time-consuming and costly, and this will become costlier with the risk of non-deductibility if a remission request is denied. These delays from the ATO will now cost taxpayers even more. The government's decision to introduce this measure, despite widespread criticism, shows that the business community should have no confidence that the Albanese government can consult and no confidence that the Albanese government listens. If the government was serious about achieving the policy objectives here, it would have at least listened to the sensitive alternate policies put forward by stakeholders. These include introducing more targeted measures that focus on high-debt accounts rather than penalising all small and family businesses, including those which are generally compliant. Reducing the percentage rates for the GIC and the SIC if deductions are to be denied. Currently 7%, 3% uplifts. Maintaining deductibility of the GIC for a reasonable period to provide time to secure financing, and retaining deductibility for the SIC as its adjustment-related charge, not a late payment penalty. Creating a transitional rule to prevent retrospective application. Currently, an amended assessment for the 2022 tax year could accrue SIC and become non-deductible. Aligning tax treatment for interest on tax overpayments, make these non-assessable. This government is clearly blinded by the revenue that this measure brings in, and it is a brazen cash grab. If this measure ultimately passes, I can assure the small and family business communities that the Coalition would urgently review its impact on small businesses when in government and given that opportunity. Extending the period to retain a BAS refund, Schedule 3. This is something that the opposition does support. Of this bill extends the period with which the Tax Commissioner must notify a taxpayer of a decision to retain a refund from a BAS. It will extend from 14 to 30 days, this period, to allow the ATO more time to verify information. The purpose of extending this period is to combat fraud and reduce the number of fraudulent refunds issued by giving the ATO more time to assess and verify potentially fraudulent BASs. This is particularly important after proliferation in recent years of high-value, large-scale GST fraud promoted through social media. The ATO's Operation Protego has estimated 57,000 individual participants in a major GST fraud, costing at least $2 billion, which ran from April 2022 to June 2023. Now, I do note the measure could raise concerns about delays to BAS refunds paid by the ATO and its impact on small business cash flow. However, this measure does address this issue in part by providing that interest is payable to an entity where there is a delay in a refund past 14 days and where there is ultimately no reduction in the refund. This will introduce the impact on compliant taxpayers affected by a longer mandatory notification period. In addition, the ATO should be judicious with its use of the extended period and should also continue to develop its risk models and work with banks, law enforcement agencies and other organisations to share information and detect fraud. Now, the government's proposed Schedule 4 of this bill continues Labor's attempt to decimate the instant asset tax write-off and deprive 26,500 medium-sized business of access to accelerated depreciation. The Treasurer today, when talking about small business in question time, kept saying, oh, we're already doing generous things for small business. A $20,000 instant asset tax write-off is not generous. It's pathetic, quite frankly. When they came into government, the instant asset tax write-off was unlimited. Unlimited. So what that could mean is that a business wanting to invest in manufacturing, a manufacturing business, could buy, they might have a new machine that was worth $300,000. They could buy that machine and write it off against profits that financial year. Right. This mob, the Albanese government, think they're generous giving small business $20,000. I mean, give me a break. And it goes again to show that no one on that front bench really has run a small business with staff for an extended period of time. That's what it shows. Not only that, a lot of them don't even have workers anymore amongst their ranks. So basically they come from a limited scope when it comes to developing policy, which is to the detriment of Australian manufacturers. I mean, this policy that they've got around, what is it called, Manufacturing Australia or Future Made in Australia, it's not even now, it's the Future Made in Australia. Constituents are awake up to this stuff. I have never seen a Labor Party go into an election with so many flawed policies, right? They've already seen, on my estimates, a 16% drop in manufacturing since they've came to office. And I know that because the Minister Huzik, gets up in question time and rabbits on, we've got 50,000 manufacturing jobs. Recently they said, we've got 860,000 manufacturing jobs. During COVID, we had 1 million manufacturing jobs under the former coalition government. So just do the maths. 1 million manufacturing jobs in COVID under the former coalition government. And now, the member for Solomon and others here, they've delivered 860,000 manufacturing jobs. So when the people in Darwin go to vote, they need to know that they've seen a 14% reduction in manufacturing under the Albanese government. And now they want to con Australians with some sort of Future Made in Australia bill. Like what they did with the Bruce Highway on infrastructure, which also impacts people. The Prime Minister came up into Queensland and announced, we're going to fix the Bruce. And then his Finance Minister says, that won't start for 4 years. That's beyond the not this election, that's beyond the 2028 election. I mean, do they really think Australians are stupid?
That's pretty soon.
This is their lineup. Free TAFE, Future Made in Australia. Meanwhile, we've got a 13% completion rate. We can't get any tradies because they've completely abandoned the private HEC sector, the vet sector, I should say. Vocational education and training, if it's a private sector business, they don't want to know about it. They don't want to know anything about it because they only want to support their union donors, and TAFE has public sector employees where they're more likely to be unionised. Mate, if I did that, I'd end up in jail. How the Labor Party get away with this for decades is beyond me. And I'm telling you, Australians are awake up to it because their mortgages are up, their rents are up, their electricity are up, their manufacturing jobs have dropped by 14%. It's a disgrace. And the Treasurer in the MPI today is absolutely right. We've never seen Australian standard of living fall by this much in one term ever. Ever. So you can keep your 20,000 instant asset tax write-off because it's pretty well worthless. Whilst we'll support it because it's better than nothing, but you shouldn't be proud of it. You should not be proud of it because under your watch we've had tens of thousands of small businesses close, and now you want to give them a $20,000 instant asset write-off. You won't be able to buy any car for 20 grand, let alone one of the electric ones you want, that has a tax-free threshold of over 90 grand. So, it just goes to show how out of touch the Albanese Labor government, their ministers and backbench are. That is the reality. Deputy Speaker, we will move an amendment to increase the instant asset tax write-off and to make it permanent, not just for 12 months. So it gets worse. They're offering 20 grand and they want to do it for a year. Like, not 4 years or, like they want to do free TAFE forever, but they can't even give small businesses a $20,000 instant tax write-off forever. They give them 1 year. 1 year, that's it. All they want to do it. Well, the Coalition, we're friends of small business. You know why? Because they employ people. They employ people and they're hurting under you mob. So, Deputy Speaker, we will support the instant asset tax write-off, we'll support the BAS refund, but I can tell you this government is not doing Australians any favours, and Australians listening know how much they're hurting. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, there's over 2.5 million small businesses across the country. Millions of small and family businesses are impacted by Labor's bad decisions, including the 100% increase in electricity that we've seen with many small businesses. Labor has consistently been slow to provide certainty on the instant asset tax write-off, and it leaves small businesses in limbo and scrambling at the end of the financial year to go, oh, what can I maybe get, rather than planning. And faced with uncertainty when they invest in their businesses. In contrast, the Liberal National Party, the federal opposition, our position would simplify depreciation for millions of small businesses by cutting red tape, boosting investment in productive assets, lowering business costs and prices. Unlike the government's piecemeal approach, we would deliver substantive reform for the 98% of Australian businesses who would benefit from the instant asset write-off being permanent. The Coalition is committed to lower, simpler and fairer taxes for Australia's 2.5 million small businesses that employ millions of Australians. Labor has opposed cutting the small business tax rate, opposed our instant asset tax write-off plan in the past, and has clawed back business tax incentives since coming into power. Australia's private sector growth has tanked under this government. Small businesses need a lifeline to drive investment and boost productivity. The Coalition is serious to support my amendment. This is a government rushing to lock in a few more cash grabs through higher taxes before an election is called. This is an anti-business government which is doing the bare minimum for small businesses before time runs out when an election is called. Under Albanese Labor government, the majority of jobs created are being funded by public spending that is not sustainable and risks higher inflation. We've already seen an increase in homelessness, rents up by 20% almost, and mortgages in some cases $30,000 increase in interest repayments and mortgages. That's $600 a week. That's a lot of money. In this bill, the government is giving with one hand to small and family business and taking with the other. Labor inherited an economy with low unemployment, strong growth and recovering government finances, and they've wasted it. They've absolutely wasted it. Labor has lost control of inflation, lost control of the economy, and it has lost sight of small businesses and families struggling under its cost of living crisis. I was on the Central Coast just last week on Friday with Lucy Wicks, and there was a small business down there, and you know what they said? They said, I'm begging you to do all that is possible to win and form government at the next election. My livelihood depends on it. Businesses are doing it tough, and things are very stressful for me as a small business owner. Costs have skyrocketed, margins are thinner, account customers are not paying, most are on 120 days. They've got staff shortages, and plus the ATO are beep, I won't use the word, ruthless and have no empathy. That's what is a business in Robertson on the Central Coast of New South Wales has said. and they said, Australia needs you, Australia needs Peter Dutton.